So you've got two groups that are working on protecting the borders. You've got USDA's Plant Protection and Quarantine, and you've got Customs and Border Protection. And these two organizations do a lot in ensuring that we have, we're trading with the appropriate folks. People are following the rules. We've got legal trade of pork and pork products. We're following the OIE regulations, on what we can and can't trade depending on disease status. Being able to target travelers from countries that may or may not have certain diseases in order to make sure that if they're bringing product in, that it's caught at the border. I mean, there's a lot of work going on at the national level to try to interdict that kind of stuff, and then also continue with trade and stop illegal products from coming in. In the U.S., the USDA has an African swine fever response plan. There's one for classical swine fever, and there's one for FAD. And we know who's in charge. So the federal and state animal health officials, if we got those diseases, would be in charge. And it's very stated pretty clearly in the plan what needs to happen. First thing that would need to happen is whatever state would be affected with the disease, you'd have to set up a control area around the infected farm. And then the state animal health official would have to figure out who's in the control area. So you'd have to find all of your swine farms. You'd have to get information about the demographics, how many animals they have, what type of farm that they are. You have to start working on surveillance to get a status. I mean, basically the state vet has to spend a lot of effort trying to understand if that disease outbreak is contained within the disease control area or if it's already moved on its way out to another state. That's why it's so important, and the pork industry has taken it to heart as well, because an ASF outbreak would really devastate us. Premises registration, just the simple, getting with your state animal health official, registering premises for the national number. I mean, that's one way that we can aid preparedness in the United States, because the state vet then in their records knows where you are and who to talk to. But other things that we need to be able to provide that the state vet wants to know about our control area is, one, who's in it, two, movements. The federal regulation or the federal book, the red book that we call it for African swine fever, we're talking 28 days trace back from the time you think it came into the farm. So you have to have your movement records to determine the risk of disease spread. And then status. Currently, nationally, we have a negative status for African swine fever, but the day that we get African swine fever, and those folks that fall in affected areas are going to have to demonstrate a negative status, which means surveillance and testing. So if we as an industry aren't prepared to help that process, it was going to make life a lot harder for the state veterinarians. And so we're focusing, the pork industry and the National Pork Board, focusing on building technologies and programs that allow, especially for business continuity in areas where movements may be stopped because of a disease outbreak. If let's say I draw a 10-kilometer radius around a swine farm in Sioux County, Iowa, I'm going to wrap up a lot of pork production sites that probably don't have the disease, and I'm going to stop their movement. Well, I got to be able to start that back up again, because those folks will go out of business. Right. So we're focusing on business continuity with the Secure Pork Supply Plan, which is a set of program standards that would allow producers to develop the information and be able to share that type of information with their state animal health official in an emergency in order to facilitate the permitting of movements. As part of that, there's been a significant investment from the board of directors of Pork Checkoff in developing an actual database and dashboard that would allow that information to be delivered to the state vets in a way that's easy to understand to make decisions on movement. That system would also benefit just the general knowledge of what's going on in your disease control area, provided producers are participating in the programs. And so I think, I stay awake at nights thinking about response, and I think we've got some tools. We need to build a better infrastructure to kind of take us to where we need to go for the way pork production is today. Last time we had a foreign animal disease in the United States was in the 1970s with classical swine fever, FMD in 1928. The pork industry is significantly different now. We're moving 1 million pigs a day across the country. So we have to have the tools and the technology to keep up with that in order to help the state and federal animal health officials. If we do need to build stronger capacity in our preparedness side, we've put together some pretty good fact sheets at National Pork Board on just things that producers could do today to prepare just for overall preparedness. We've also got education outreach on secure port supply, which covers the business continuity, and then the database system and the dashboard system is kind of that icing on the cake. And so I think if we improve our tools, it just gets us to a better place. If we have it tomorrow, we can still respond. Again, the challenge with ASF is you have to rely solely on biosecurity because we do not have a vaccine. And it's going to take a long time and a very long funded, sustained effort, I think, to get into developing a commercial vaccine. But it's something that probably needs to happen.